Hi there, and thank you so much for joining us today. You're listening to Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. It is part of the Radio Ear Network family. I am your host, Sue Ashby, and this is Over the Edge. This is a two-part show. The first part show deals with adult issues, and parental guidance is advised as it may not be suitable for young children. My guest today is MK Mueller. I'll just tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll get to talk to her and let her tell her story, which is fascinating. MK fled to a shelter for domestic violence at the age of 34. Today, she's the author of several award-winning books, including Taking Care of Me, The Habits of Happiness, and 8 to Great, The Powerful Process for Positive Change. Formerly, she was a school teacher. Now she shares her life-changing insights about how she took charge of her own life and now enables people to empower themselves. MK, it's a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, my extreme pleasure, Sue. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Okay, I want to, as I said, it's a two-part show, and this is part one. The first part I want to concentrate on more your early life and your shelter experiences. The second one will be really about what you've done with the experiences that you've had to make you the person that you are today. So tell me a little bit about your early life and going into teaching.
Wonderful. I'd love to, Sue. I'm going to call myself one of those outgoing students in elementary, high school, and college era. I was in speech and theater. I had the lead probably in 20 shows over that time, so I got a lot of acclaim for my theatrical and musical abilities. And to everyone outside of me, it looked like I had it all. So I really kind of got swept up in that sometimes too, that I really thought that I had life kind of figured out, and boy, was I wrong. So I went through a couple of relationships, almost got married in college, and then got out of college and started dating some folks and realized there was kind of a pattern that they were not nice to me. So when I met a young man at 27, I thought, oh, this is the one. So handsome, so talented. He was a musician like myself. In fact, we sang a lot of weddings before we had our own wedding. And just loved the fact that he was a man of Christian faith and just so many things that we had in common. Mm-hmm. What didn't occur to me was that I never did anything right in his eyes. So after, what did they say, the first 3 months of a relationship is usually the honeymoon phase. After the first 3 or 4 months, all of a sudden, everything I did was wrong. So I'm going to just talk about one that stands out to me. In fact, I wrote it in the annulment. The Catholic Church has a divorce phase 2, which is the annulment, and I remember writing all about the relationship in that document. And we would sing at church every Sunday together. So he'd come over for breakfast right before we went to church. And I was so proud of, I made great pancakes and great eggs and bacon. And I'm not a great cook, but boy, I make a good breakfast. But to him, nothing was right. And after probably 5 or 6 of these, and going to church in tears that I had failed again, and why couldn't I figure this out, I told him I thought that it might be best if we didn't meet for breakfast anymore, again, putting all of the blame, if you'll note, on myself. Mm-hmm. So, the parish priest who married us just, couldn't have been more over the top. Here we are, this good-looking, talented, faith-filled couple. And we actually took a class from him, and one of the things at the end was you took an assessment. The Catholic Church at the time, not sure if they still do, had an assessment, and I think there were like 300 items. And if you get one wrong, you get a whole page of coaching on it, and then you have to go meet with the parish priest. We got 225 wrong out of 300.
Oh my goodness.
He looked at the document and he said, oh, well, this can't be right. He pushes, I'll never forget it, pushes it aside and said, this marriage was made in heaven. Now then, have you chosen the music for the ceremony? So, again, pretty easy annulment to get because of events like that. At any rate, so started into the marriage, just pretty rough right from the start. And again, people had told me all my life, in fact, a lot of us still hear it today, marriage is hard, which of course it is. But someone who is in a codependent situation in her own life and not believing she's good enough, et cetera, can take that and say, oh, well, they weren't kidding, right?
Absolutely.
we never laugh. He never tells me anything I do right. He stopped holding my hand. He yells at me a lot. Well, over the years, the yelling increased. In the meantime, we had adopted a little girl. And, of course, I thought that was going to change everything. Nope, not quite. So by the time she was about 2.5, things were at a crisis point. He was now throwing things at me. He was barring the door. And just lots and lots of screaming. So
you must have been terrified, especially with such a young child.
Yes, I had one friend that I could share with. I wasn't close to my sister at the time for just lots of different reasons, and she had just gotten married and moved across the country, and back in those days we didn't have email and free calls. So I had one friend that I would talk with, and she just kept telling me to call the hotline for domestic violence. They told me for an entire year, your life is in danger, you must get out. But when all you're getting is yelling, and when you turn on the TV and there's a whole bunch of yelling on television between couples as well, especially the soap operas, you think, well, no, he's just going through a rough time, it's his job stress, again, we love to make excuses. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, women believe what men say, and men believe what women do. But that was borne out in our relationship because every time he said he was going to change and he'd never do it again. I remember one time he put his fist through a door, and I got a dozen roses the next day with an absolute assurance that it would never happen again. Another thing a lot of people don't know about domestic violence is it increases around the holidays. And so I actually was directing a choir as a guest, just a favor for a friend who got sick the week of Christmas. So I was directing her choir Christmas Eve, and 1 hour before I left, and this is very typical again of this mentality of the abusive spouse, he picked a fight and would not let me leave the house. And I finally pulled a picture off the wall and crashed the glass on the floor, making him step back, and that's the only way I got out of the house. So wouldn't you think by now I would know, right? But no, I stayed for another 8 months.
But it's hard to go. I mean, it's not easy to leave either, is it?
Well, certainly he started to say things like, if you ever leave me, I will kill you. Those are, again, unfortunately common in an escalated domestic violence relationship. But I was kind of doing some counseling of my own, not about this issue so much as other things. So I really wasn't telling anybody the whole story. But one day, a friend of mine sat me down that next May, and she said, you need to resign your job. And I said, why? And she said, you have to go home and fix your marriage. Well, I hadn't told her everything, so again, she didn't realize that that's the worst thing you can do in a domestic violence relationship is isolate yourself from your support systems. But I did. I quit my job that I love so much as a high school teacher, and that summer, again, total escalation now because he really has cut me off from my family, almost all of my friends, etc. So it was the day after my daughter's 3rd birthday that I was finally able to leave. it escalated very much right before her birthday, again, typical of the patterns. He knew that we were going to have friends over, so he knew that I wouldn't do anything rash. Right. And just did a lot more pushing and shoving and throwing and screaming kinds of things. I'll never forget one day he found a book that had a moon and a star on the back cover. And he said, "What are you reading?" And he threw it at my head. So it's, again, just anything that they can use, they do to say, you're a terrible, awful person. So at the party, I pulled my girlfriend aside, who was the one friend that I'd confided in, and I said, "It's gotten worse. I need your help." And she said, "What?" And I said, "I need your baby monitor." And since she lived next door, I hoped, and sure enough, we tested it, it did, that she could hear. And I said, "I'm going to sleep in another bedroom tonight, but in case he comes up to my bedroom, I will scream, and I need you to come immediately with your husband and call the police." And she said, "Okay." So I did have the baby monitor. She had her baby monitor on all night, and he did come up to the room, and I simply said, "Leave now." And somehow, for some reason, he did. The next morning he went off to work. As soon as he left, I started packing the car with anything I could, and we went off to a shelter. The domestic violence shelter where I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, only had room for 7 women, and they were full. And so when I called to say I was coming, and they had warned me, I'd been over this drill many, many times. They said, "When you're ready, you must call, because we can only say yes if we have an opening right at that minute.
Right.
We can't save one for you for an hour." So I said, okay. So sure enough, they didn't have one, and they said, "Go to this other shelter." So that night, we went to a shelter with lots of people not in recovery, and so there was lots of screaming and throwing things, and a very scary night for my daughter and I. But the next morning when I called, they did have an opening, and I was able to take her and go there.
So what was the experience? I can imagine the experience of the first night must have been almost as terrifying as what you've just left. Tell me what they advised you to do and how to cope with the situation of leaving him and staying safe. And, did you have to go over with them all the information that had happened and tell them what he was like?
Well, the first thing they do is when they said, "Yes, we have an opening," they said, "We're going to meet you at such and such a donut shop." And that was because they had to make sure I wasn't followed. So they were really watching out for my safety. Lots of women have the tendency to, "I'll go home to mom while this blows over," and that's probably one of the main reasons that the recidivism, the return rate for domestic violence women to that relationship or another abusive relationship, last time I checked, was in the 80 to 85 percentile. Very high. So that's not where we unlearn old habits, is at mom's, right?
Right.
We really need intensive counseling, and thank heavens this was a free shelter that happened to be run by the Catholic Archdiocese, but it wasn't at all religious. They never asked for my religious affiliation, in fact. Mm-hmm. They simply, they knew my story by then, and they said, "Meet me at the donut shop." So at the donut shop, they went over 5 rules, and I'll talk about those in just a second. And then they said, "You must call someone right now and tell them where you are, and just tell them you're not where you are, but that you're in a safe place." So I called my parents in Iowa, and I said, "I'm going to a shelter. It's a safe place. I'll call you, in the next few weeks." It's a 4-week program. And so that's what we did. Then we went over. They had a counselor just for the children. What a blessing. And then they had 4 counselors for the 7 women. One of them was alcohol and recovery. One was codependence, just different kinds of counselors, and then a head counselor.